everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I am Lee Camp. Welcome to the late night edition of Dangerous Ideas. It's getting naughty in here. So much important stuff to talk about. Thanks for being here. Please click the thumbs up and all that good stuff. I'm about to play a clip of the Senator Tom Cotton trying to insult Code Pink. He completely fails to do so in the minute of a Senate hearing. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into the fact this story is barely being covered, that Google is obviously helping fund the collapsing Israeli economy in a kind of backdoor, sneaky way. We'll be getting into that, which has barely been covered. Also, going to get into these leaked signal chats by Pete Hegseth, the Department of Defense, and a variety of characters, including J.D. Vance. We now know what the text said, and I'm going to give you my take on what they prove, what these texts show about our government, show about the behavior of our government. And I feel like I have not heard my angle on it as much as some others. So we'll get to that in a minute. And I had another one coming up. Oh, hopefully we'll get to So a very popular site that you all may be members on is maybe selling all of your data. Anyway, all of that and more coming up right now. Click thumbs up, click share, click subscribe. And I do not frown upon super chats. You can throw in a super chat. It helps fund this show. It makes a difference. Okay, let's see. One of the biggest clowns in our government, Tom Cotton, gets interrupted by Code Pink during a Senate hearing, and we'll see his response.
They've committed against the American people.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Witness will suspend.
The greatest threat to global security is Israel, and the whole world knows it. Stop funding Israel! Stop funding Israel! Stop funding Israel!
Now, that's the voice of Tig Barry, who I know pretty well, co-leader of, one of the leaders of Code Pink. And he stood up, and if you couldn't understand him, he said, stop funding Israel, stop funding Israel, stop funding Israel. All good points for these horrific parasitic clowns who run our government.
So that protester was a Code Pink lunatic, saying the greatest threat to world peace is funding Israel. I will observe, for the benefit of the audience here on television, that Code Pink is funded by communist China as well.
Absolutely not true. So he'd like to observe this completely false thing to the audience.
Which simply illustrates, speak up now if you want to be removed as well, whoever's saying that.
So this is Ann Wright. I know her as well. Amazing lady. She's a former Army colonel, and she, of course, has spoken out, to be a part of Code Pink, has spoken out heavily against our military. She's at every protest. I can't even count the number of protests we've been at together. Anyway, wonderful woman. And right there, she's yelling at the security to be careful because she has a hip replacement.
In the Senate Intelligence.
So she was saying, we're not funded by communist China. I do not do communist stuff, and I'm a former Army colonel. And I'll go ahead and play Medea's post-game interview. Medea Benjamin, co-founder of Code Pink. I'll play her post-game interview about this.
Hearing right now, after Tulsi Gabbard spoke, Tig Barry got up to say that Israel is the greatest threat to global security. As he was pulled out, Senator Tom Cotton, who is in charge of the hearing, said that person was Code Pink, and he mentioned Israel because Code Pink is funded by the Chinese Communist Party. That is such slander. That is such lies. Of course, we get zero from the Communist Party. We don't even know anybody in the Chinese Communist Party. And we don't need any outside force to tell us that what the U.S. is doing in supporting Israel's genocide is horrific. And that's why he stood up. And that's why Ann Wright stood up and got arrested, to say, stop slandering Code Pink and start looking at what Israel is doing. The genocide is something that we can't keep supporting enough.
Well said, Medea Benjamin. And yeah, this is an ongoing effort to slander Code Pink as some sort of communist China project, which is not true. And it'd be nice if they sued Tom Cotton for libel. I don't know what the rules are on that, but yeah, completely false. But of course, our government, that's all they can do. That can be their only response. They're being called to account on something they should be called to account on, which is funding and arming and facilitating a genocide in Gaza. And that's what these people were yelling about. And that's why they were taken out, because we don't really have freedom of speech. And then you've got your so-called elected representative saying a completely false line about them being funded by communist China. So wanted to show that. Now I'm going to get to another. This video is pretty incredible. It's I feel like there's been this shift under Trump where people think they're going to get the truths because Trump is at the top of the government now, and he's gonna rip up the deep state and reveal the truth of what really goes on in our government and all that garbage. And if you look at the JFK files, yeah, as I've said, they've revealed some important things, but they're not going to reveal anything about the assassination, not anything deep about the assassination of JFK. And Donald Trump didn't reveal really anything with the Epstein files that he made a big show of revealing, considering he was old buddies with Jeffrey Epstein. So this idea that Trump's going to reveal everything that goes on is kind of laughable. So anyway, I say that to get to this clip. This pretty amazing clip of Sam Husseini, friend of mine, an amazing journalist, and he is just always there at the State Department. He's always trying to get his questions answered. They almost never call on him. They now have him allotted, because it didn't used to be assigned seating. They now have him allotted to a seat in the back where they can ignore him as much as possible. And ever since Trump got into office, he's never had a question answered. The last time he was heard from in the State Department was when Tony Blinken came to give his goodbye press conference, and Sam Husseini tried to ask him about the Hannibal Directive. He was dragged out by 4 security guards who gave him a concussion, and obviously would not let him speak or ask a fairly simple question about tell us what you know about the Hannibal Directive, about Israel killing their own people. But okay, so this is Sam Husseini. He actually did get called on. He said that her calling on him was the result of 3 straight days of yelling JFK in the back of the room. They finally called on him because I think this spokesperson for the State Department thought it was going to be a fairly straightforward question about what does Trump think of the JFK files or something like that. And anyway, it ultimately gets around to being about Israel rather than the JFK files, and you'll see her response. It is surprising for an administration that's going to reveal the truth about everything.
That's where we're going to go. And in the back, did I hear JFK? Because interestingly, we haven't brought that up yet. So let's give that a try here. Who is JFK? So who keeps saying JFK?
Excellent, thank you.
In the back? All right, let's do it.
The JFK assassination is obviously back in the news, and Jefferson Morley of JFK Facts was on Bill O'Reilly's show.
And by the way, I'm going to say a few things as we get through this, because his question is like 2.5 minutes long. So anyway.
Analyzing some of the documents that the Trump administration has released. One of the revelations that he discussed was the fact that James Angleton, the CIA counterintelligence chief, had relied on Israelis as part of his intelligence.
By the way, fun inside fact, the reason he has on glasses that look kind of crazy, orange and blue, is because he got a concussion, courtesy of the State Department, when they dragged him out, and he now has regular headaches and he's light sensitive, and so those glasses are meant to decrease the impact of the concussions he suffered, thanks to our State Department security guards as he tried to ask a question.
Intelligence gathering operations, which included monitoring Oswald prior to the assassination.
It's indisputable that he kept him under surveillance.
For those listening to the podcast, we've now cut to Jefferson Morley on, I guess, Bill O'Reilly, which, what a garbage human being, but Jefferson Morley does some good JFK research.
4 years from 1959 to 1963. These new documents point to an Israeli connection using Israeli agent to monitor Oswald.
As you may be aware, JFK in the summer of 1963 was deeply concerned with Israel acquiring nuclear weapons. He had sent a series of letters to Ben Gurion, Israel's founding prime minister, demanding that Israel allow inspectors.
So you just heard him say it, but this is something people don't talk about probably enough, is that there were many things that the government wanted to get at. The reason our government did not like where JFK was headed with foreign policy. And one on that list was the fact that he was demanding inspections of Israel's nuclear facilities. And they did not want to give those inspections. So now that is one of many things. It also is the reverse, where people who want to act like that's the only thing, that's the only reason our government or Israel wanted JFK out of the way. That is not true. There are many reasons that our government and the CIA wanted JFK out of the way, not least of which being that he was working to break up the CIA.
Ben Gurion resigned just when he was pressed on the issue by
I've got
JFK.
something I can say to this.
Yeah, I do.
You want me to say
I got a
something?
question for
All
you.
right.
Israel continued stalling the inspections, and
All right.
JFK was, of course, assassinated in November. Every president since has adopted Israel's policy of refusing to acknowledge the existence of Israel's nuclear arsenal. My question to you is, will this administration finally do so?
And just real quick, before you hear her answer, literally our government and the Israeli government have never admitted that Israel has nuclear weapons. They are the only country on the planet that has nuclear weapons that doesn't allow for inspections and denies they have nuclear weapons. I mean, North Korea doesn't allow inspections, but they don't deny they have nuclear weapons. And we know they have nuclear weapons one is from various Pentagon papers that I believe they forgot to redact something that revealed that they internally talk about Israel's nuclear weapons. And then another one was I think a previous prime minister of Israel, after he's out of government, has said that they have nuclear weapons and they should just admit it. So you have those statements, but no official currently serving voice of the U.S. or Israel has ever admitted it. So Sam Husseini's asking, is this administration ready to do so? Come on, Trump. You're different, right?
Boy, we went from JFK and then to now Israel's
Will you
nuclear
acknowledge
arsenal.
Israel has
No,
nuclear weapons?
I understand. I understand.
Too busy making jokes to try and get away from answering this question.
Here's what I will tell you about the JFK files. Is
I'm not
there's
asking
about
about
80,
the JFK
excuse me,
files.
sir.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. About 80,000 pages of unredacted records related to the Kennedy assassination are currently being released, and I think that they've finished at this point by order of President Trump. We know that also, as I'd been asked before, if there was any other material anywhere, this is it. This is all the material. It's out, and again, unredacted, and so that's good news. For my generation, this is also good news, certainly as you grow up with that kind of a dynamic.
As you'll notice, and I don't know whether I need to keep playing it, not answering the question, not willing to even say the words Israeli nuclear weapons. I can't remember if she ever even responds even
that happened in this country. And now, of course, we happily can say that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is contributing to the nature of our nation and making a difference as well. As far as the speculation and conspiracy theories about what was happening regarding that assassination and in the decades that followed, I have no comment for you, and nor am I going to speculate or comment.
It's not a conspiracy theory. What is she talking about?
You will not acknowledge
I
that
appreciate
Israel
you
has
being here
nuclear
and
weapons.
asking that at the end.
No-
Yes, sir.
no
Go
straight
ahead,
talk
please.
on
Thank you.
Israel.
Go ahead.
Okay, so that's it. Won't even say the words Israel nuclear weapons. So this is the administration that was like, we're revealing everything. We're showing the government. We're showing what happened with JFK. Here we are. We will not even say the words Israel and nuclear weapons in the same breath, even though we know they have nuclear weapons. We absolutely know. The Pentagon internally talks about it. And yet here they are. Still can't admit it. Still can't talk about it. Absolutely not. Okay. I got so much good stuff for this show. I'm going to move rather quickly. Oh, everyone should support Sam Husseini, by the way. Not only is he a great journalist, but he also is suffering that concussion for trying to ask questions of Antony Blinken for you guys, for all of us, so that we can somehow hold these idiot leaders, these absolute groups of parasitic, vacuous masses to account. Anyway, he's got a Substack. Can't remember the exact URL at the moment, but look up Sam Husseini on Substack. Absolutely. Okay. Let's get to these revealed, these leaked, accidentally leaked signal chats about the bombing of Yemen that were sent to the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. Something we should say up top is the editor of The Atlantic is former IDF. He's also, The Atlantic is a pro-U.S. empire. Oh, thank you, Roberto. Someone, Husseini.substack.com, HUSSEINI.substack.com. The Atlantic is a pro-U.S. empire garbage magazine. Now, at times, you may find an article in The Atlantic that is a little more left-wing than, let's say, the New York Times will be, but 85% of the time, they're still going to just promote the U.S. empire and all of our egregious blood-soaked dumpster fire. So that's something you should know. And that's where these texts came from. But we now know these texts are real. So thank you, Denise, for the super chat, for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. I do not frown upon super chats. They make a difference. Thank you so much, Denise. But anyway, let's look at some of these. And I just have a couple of points I want to make. I'm not going to, talk about them the way that like CNN would. Obviously, CNN is talking about this story too. But I'm showing you the text from New York Times. So New York Times is talking about it. But they're not going to say, I think, the points I have about these. Okay, so it's basically a signal chat between several people: J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, the head of Department of Defense, and several others, various national security advisors. And they're talking about how they're getting ready to bomb Yemen, which would be Trump's first act of war other than facilitating genocide in Gaza. But outside of that, his first act of war. I guess that's not true. We're facilitating war in Ukraine, etc. But it would be the first direct bombing by the United States. And I know these type of things don't make much difference to you and me, but they make a lot of difference to other people where they go, well, he hasn't bombed anyone. Oh, no, he just sent the missiles to Ukraine and sent the missiles to Israel. But anyway, so Pete Hegseth basically says we're getting ready to bomb Yemen. Why did they bomb Yemen? Why did they bomb the Houthis? Because they want to open up that shipping lane again that the Houthis have successfully shut down, because they have said they're not going to allow ships to go through while the genocide in Gaza continues. And by the way, when the ceasefire was actually a ceasefire, like before Israel fully cut off all aid to Gaza, Yemen, the Houthis actually did stop all the attacks. So they had stood by what they had said, which is, if you aren't going to genocide Yemen, we'll stop the attacks. But then when Israel refused to allow any aid in, they restarted them. Okay, so believe it or not, J.D. Vance is the voice of peace for about 2 seconds in this signal chat. And, he has this right-wing, in some regards, anti-war take, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, who are all for bloodthirsty U.S. imperialism. They just don't really like it in Ukraine. They don't like it when it's aimed at white people mainly. Especially white Christian people. So, but they essentially, like, Tucker Carlson is basically said nothing to be against the genocide in Gaza. His only complaint was, quote, it doesn't look good for Israel. Like, it's a bad look. So they don't like war when it's on white people, basically. Anyway, here's J.D. Vance's text. He says, I think we're making a mistake. 3% of U.S. trade runs through the Suez Canal. 40% of European trade does. So he doesn't care, obviously, about the civilians that we could kill in Yemen. He doesn't care about whether this could spark some sort of world war for the most part. He's just concerned that this isn't useful because it's not that important a trade route for us. It's a more important trade route to Europe. 40% of European trade does. There is a real risk that the public doesn't understand this or why it's necessary. It amazes me that any of them cares what the public thinks at any point. But the strongest reason to do this is, as POTUS said, so as Trump said, to send a message. So that's why Trump did this, was to send a message that the U.S. can do anything and we can blow up the Houthis. Vance continues, I am not sure the president is aware how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. I'm surprised JD Vance actually has the teeniest, tiniest balls to say anything negative about Trump's decisions. But anyway, there's a further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I'm willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself, but there's a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing the messaging work on why this matters and seeing where the economy is. So he concludes with, I'm also willing to support you. So I'll support murdering people anytime he wants. But he also says, let's just delay it a month. So we'll do this stupid, horrible thing a month from now. And he says after the messaging work is done, which you and I understand that the way our U.S. government works is it's not about whether something's right or wrong. It's about whether you've created enough propaganda to make people think something's right or wrong. So what J.D. Vance is concerned about is we haven't done enough of the propaganda work to make the American people understand why we're bombing Yemen. That's kind of his concern. So we need to wait a month, do good propaganda, then re-educate the American people into why they should want to kill Houthis, and then we'll be good to go. Joe Kent, National Counterterrorism Center, says there's nothing time sensitive about this. We'd have the exact same options in a month. Then John Radcliffe from the CIA says, from our perspective, we are mobilizing assets to support now, but a delay would not negatively impact us. So we're mobilizing assets, which is him admitting that the CIA is being sent to, I don't know, Yemen, Israel, wherever else is useful, mobilizing assets to that region of the world. Not that they don't already have people there. And then Pete Hegseth, the white supremacist lunatic leading our Pentagon, literally has the Christian Crusader cross tattooed on his body. You can look up photos. That cross is usually used for white supremacists, not exclusively, but usually. Definitely used for some sort of Christian supremacy. But anyway, Pete Hegseth says, I understand your concerns and fully support you raising this with POTUS. Important considerations, most of which are tough to know how they play out. The economy, Ukraine peace, Gaza, etc. I think messaging, like his opening sentence was, oh, it's so tough to figure out, but we should probably bomb them anyway. He then says, I think messaging is going to be tough no matter what. Nobody knows who the Houthis are, which is why we would need to stay focused on 1, Biden failed, and 2, Iran funded. I love that. I love that they're like, we're going to bomb people that the American people don't know who they are. The American people don't understand why we're killing these people. We're going to kill lots of innocent people because that's how we create war now. We don't really hit individuals. We hit whole buildings. More on that in a moment. So we're going to kill lots of innocent people. And, there might be a few Americans who seem concerned. By the way, when they've already done this, right? They've already done these bombings. And when they did them, were the American people concerned? Was there a whole uproar across America? Waiting a few weeks or a month does not fundamentally change the calculus. 2 immediate risks, though, in waiting is that 1, it leaks. 2, why would it leak? You only even sent it to the editor of The Atlantic. 2, Israel takes an action first, or Gaza ceasefire falls apart, and we don't get to start this on our own terms. We can manage both. And just to go back for a moment about the fact that the guy who revealed this is former IDF. I think it has made some people think that it's like fake or something, but former IDF or not, there are those in the U.S. ruling elite who are right wing but don't like Trump. So it's quite possible this guy at the top of the Atlantic, former IDF or not, might not like Trump. He might want to have wanted to reveal these things because he doesn't feel that Trump is making the right decisions, and therefore, why not reveal to the public what's happening? So the former IDF stuff doesn't mean he's not a garbage human being, but it doesn't mean these are fake, which they've already been proven to be true. They're just the Trump administration's argument about them is it didn't reveal any classified information, which it clearly does. So I don't know. Yeah, his second concern about waiting a month is that Israel takes action first on Gaza, and then basically we look like we're following their lead rather than just doing our thing ourselves. We are prepared to execute, he says, and if I had final go or no go vote, I believe we should. This is not about the Houthis. I see it as two things. One, restoring freedom of navigation, freedom. And two, reestablishing deterrence, which Biden cratered on. Yeah, Biden cratered on deterrence. He just continued to murder people throughout the Middle East. He continued gut-wrenching sanctions on Syria, and actually Syria fell under Biden. He continued to facilitate a massive proxy war in Ukraine and Russia, and he facilitated and made it genocide in Gaza possible. So, yeah, Biden really failed to do anything bloodthirsty. Then Hegseth says we can easily pause. If we do, I will do all we can to enforce. Anyway, so that was one of the main things I wanted to talk about in these texts. And then the other one is after they bomb. So they basically send a celebratory text saying they've bombed. And then Michael Waltz, one of the national security guys, says building collapsed, had multiple positive ID. Amazing job. JD Vance says, what? These people are fucking children. Honestly, this is not high schoolers texting about, they're just texting with hypersonic missiles. That's like, what? Wait, who'd we kill? Like, it's just so insane. Like, this is how it's done. You want to think, even when you disagree with their decisions, like even when they're going to war in a place, I don't want them to go to war. You want to think there are like adults around, that there are intelligent men and women sitting down and saying intelligent things, even if I disagree with them. Instead, just they're children. These are high school kids going, we blew up a thing. And the other guy goes, what thing? I don't know. What thing we blew? What we blow up? It's like, Jesus, this is so pathetic. So after JD Vance says what, Michael Waltz says, typing too fast. The first target, their top missile guy, meaning the Houthis' top missile guy, we had a positive ID of him walking into his girlfriend's building, and it's now collapsed. They blew up a building to kill one guy. This is a building, obviously, filled with innocent people, innocent children, innocent women, innocent men. They blew up the building to kill one guy. Now, outside of Israel's behavior, you don't really, you're not supposed to see that kind of thing. That type of behavior is not really supposed to be acceptable. I'm not saying we didn't do it in Iraq and Afghanistan and these other places, but when they would try and explain it, they'd try and explain that, oh, that's not what we were doing. Whenever they would talk about strikes in Afghanistan or in Iraq, and Obama would have press conferences, they'd go, oh, we hit this guy because we had a 99% positive ID and he was surrounded by other militants. They would always pretend that they killed a group of militants, even when they bombed a wedding party. They'd be like, we thought it was a group of militants. We are now, because Israel has normalized this level of genocidal behavior, we are now at the point that they don't bother any of that. They just blow up buildings because they think someone they disliked might be in there. It is so remarkably repulsive, these human beings. And anyway, then after he says that, they go, good job, good job, good job. Yay, good job. Woohoo. And then happy emoji. Oh, yeah. And then Michael Waltz puts a fist emoji with an American flag and a fire emoji. These are the people in charge of the largest nuclear arsenal in the world. The guy sending the fist flag fire emoji. Oh my God. So remarkably repulsive. And I think that's really what we should be talking. Instead, most of the discussion about this on your mainstream media or in Congress has been, how did this information get out? How did this get leaked? That's the discussion. The discussion is not, wow, we are a fucking banana republic, just a group of ass clowns pushing buttons. We're Dr. Strangelove mixed with Beavis and Butthead. Like, that is not the discussion, and it should be. That really should be the discussion. Okay. This is a pretty, this next one is a pretty incredible story. Everything seems to come back to Israel, doesn't it, nowadays? Pretty incredible story about how Google is backdoor trying to help fund Israel's collapsing economy. And that is not even how, so the Gray Zone is reposting an article from another outlet, but they don't headline it that way. And to me, that's the lead part of this story. But their headline is, Google imports ex-Israeli spies who automated the Gaza genocide. So, and I'll explain to you what I mean by backdoor funding the Israeli economy in just a second. Oh, everybody, click thumbs up, click share, throw in a super chat. If I get 10 super chats, I'll do an extra 10 minutes. And the other thing is, tomorrow night is the next episode of Unredacted Tonight. If you want to see that, then you should watch it. The next episode of Unredacted Tonight, it's such a good episode. I dig into the trillions missing at the Pentagon. I get into more on Israel. Anyway, so much going on in the next Unredacted Tonight. I hope you will support that show. Oh, by the way, I created an easier link to get to the Unredacted Tonight playlist so that you can see all the episodes, any ones you missed. It's just leecamp.com/unredacted. You got to make sure it's lowercase. Uppercase will take you to a dirty, dirty porn site. No, I'm just kidding. But you do need to make sure it's lowercase. leecamp.com/unredacted. Not Unredacted Tonight. Just leecamp.com/unredacted takes you to the playlist that shows all of the clips and episodes of Unredacted Tonight. Okay. So let's keep going. So you've heard of Unit 8200. That's this elite Israeli spy unit. I don't know if people compare it to this. No, I guess they'd say Mossad is the Israeli CIA. But anyway, Unit 8200 is this elite IDF spy unit. So Unit 8200 wrote the programming and designed the algorithms that automated the genocide of Gaza. I've done several segments on that. These algorithms they have that just decide someone in Gaza could possibly, maybe, conceivably, maybe have some connection to Hamas. And then that allows them to just murder their whole family, which is laughable, but that's the algorithm. Anyway. Unit 8200 was also responsible for the pager attack in Lebanon, which was outright terrorism. Even Leon Panetta, former head of the CIA, said it was a terrorist attack. Now, those who helped design the architecture of apartheid are being swallowed by the U.S. tech surveillance complex. On March 18th, Google bought Israeli cybersecurity company Wiz for $32 billion. The acquisition will mark the single largest transfer of former Israeli spies into the American company Google. This is because Wiz, that was the name of the company, Wiz is run and staffed by dozens. I don't know why you'd name your company after pissing. I don't, of all the choice, like, did they sit around a boardroom and really that was the best they came up with? They were like, we got Wiz, we got Sharts, and we got Hershey Highway. Those are the three options we got for our company name. Let's go with Wiz. This is because Wiz is run and staffed by dozens of ex-Unit 8200 members, the specialist cyber spying arm of the IDF. We haven't yet gotten to how this is a backdoor funding of Israel's economy. But the identity of the Wiz founders, all former 8200, is fairly well documented in Israeli media. One of the founders, Ami Lutwak, boasts on his LinkedIn, that he led a mission-critical R&D team for Unit 8200, which won them the Israel Defense Award 2012. Less well documented, however, is the fact that a huge chunk of the Wiz workforce, from office managers to software engineers to product analysts, are all former 8200. Following my investigation earlier this year into their members working in tech companies, I've identified nearly 50 Wiz employees as being ex-Unit 8200. It's also worth noting that the Wiz deal represents a huge tax coup for Israel. So this is where it gets kind of crazy. This deal will bring around $5 billion in revenue for the war economy. So $5 billion of taxes alone go to Israel, which is around 0.6% of Israel's entire GDP. So Google, in this one purchase, has funded 0.6% of Israel's entire GDP. But still, there's more. He says, Zionists have already expressed the benefits in terms of the warplanes and missiles it will pay for to conduct the genocide. But here's where things get suspicious. The valuation of this company is rather curious. So this company Wiz that Google Alphabet paid $32 billion for. And you may go, that sounds like a lot of money for a company I've never heard of. The valuation is curious. A huge 64 times Wiz's most recent annual sales. They just paid for this company 64 times what Wiz's sales are. As someone noted, you could buy Delta Airlines or Brazil's oil company Petrobras for this money and have change left over. Petrobras is one of the largest oil companies in the world. Delta Airlines is one of the largest airlines companies in the world. You could buy either of those for, what was it, $32 billion that they paid for this Israeli spyware company. I mean, Petrobras, it's insane. The overpriced valuation is as likely as much about politics as economics. Google is heavily invested in Israel. It opened offices there nearly 20 years ago. It's bought a number of Israeli startup tech companies in recent years. And former CEO Eric Schmidt has cozied up with Netanyahu. He was also one of the top people in Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016. Cozied up with Netanyahu on numerous occasions over the years. All the key figures at Google and its mother company Alphabet are proud Zionists, from Schmidt to current CEO Sundar Pichai, to founder Sergey Brin, to Anat Ashkenazi, the chief financial officer of Alphabet. So they're all big supporters of Israel. But to me, this is like so obvious that Google is trying to put a major influxion of cash into Israel, which is, their economy is cratered. It's just collapsing. 65,000 businesses have gone out of business since Israel began their genocide. They have whole ports that have shut down because there are no incoming or outgoing products. and you also have the just flight away from, citizen flight away from Israel, because most people in Israel are dual citizens. Many of them are leaving. You also have a big tech flight from Israel. Israel was making itself this big tech economy, and a lot of companies are saying this just seems a little sketchy. So they're, maybe we don't want to be part of this genocide economy. Google is doing the opposite. Google is trying to fund Israel, and they can't do it directly. And, this next part is my view of it. They can't do it directly. You can't, like, if Google just gave a gift to the Israeli government of $5 billion, or like, that would not look so good. So instead, they bought this company for 64 times what their annual sales are. Like, I mean, to me, it's not even really concealed that Google was just looking for a way to try and fund Israel, to try and get money to Israel. So yeah, Google, add that to your list of boycotts, which, by the way, is really tough because, like, for example, I live stream on StreamYard. It's the best I've used for these live streams that go out to multiple platforms, and totally works like garbage on Firefox. Like, when you use a Firefox browser, no good. So lots of times you have to use Google Chrome because it's not going to work. So it is tough to not support these companies. But anyway, if you have the ability. Okay, a few more small things on Israel. I love this. There's an account called Israel Exposed, which has submitted 23 gigabytes of raw war crimes footage, 10,000 videos and images. And this truly is like, this is a level of impressive work, because I can't look at any of those images. Honestly, it just completely short circuits my brain. And so the people who do this as like a job, who literally go through every video of war crimes so that they can put it together and send it to the International Criminal Court or other places to try and prosecute these people. Anyway, they just sent that to the International Criminal Court and the Hind Foundation, or Hind Foundation, and ICJ Palestine, all the legal teams, and pretty incredible that they put together all that footage and got it to them. But it also shows the number of war crimes that Israel's committed, that there's that many gigabytes of just straight up videos of war crimes committed by Israel. And because I thought, because I showed you some stories from the New York Times earlier, I should remind you what a trash heap the New York Times is as well. I love this article. This just came out the other day. Just look at the title. Lebanon ravaged by war needs changes to unlock aid. That could be a tall order. Okay, so I've read the title, and who's Lebanon at war with? How did they get destroyed? Like, what happened? I don't know. You mean like internal war? Like there's like a civil war, or what? Like, why are they ravaged by war? Is there another country involved? And so you go to the subtitle and you go, oh, well, maybe they'll say Israel in the subtitle. For years, the country has failed to enact financial and governance overhauls required by lenders. The recent fighting has made that problem urgent. Oh, recent fighting with who? Recent fighting by who? What country is involved? Is there anyone involved other than Lebanon? I guess not. Of course, this is Israel committing war crimes against Lebanon. And also, there's throw in there the fact that this article is the New York Times blaming Lebanon for being attacked by Israel, like blaming them for their own issues as Israel attacks them. It's just, New York Times is so remarkably pathetic. Okay. Let's see. There's also Alan McLeod posted this. This cartoon is from 13 years ago, and it could be from yesterday. And for those of you listening to the podcast, it is a cartoon of the political cartoon of Netanyahu. There's a conveyor belt of dead babies wrapped in sheets coming out of a collapsed Gaza structure, and Netanyahu is stamping terrorist on every one of the dead children. And this is from 13 years ago. Could be from yesterday. 13 years ago. It shows you how long they've been doing this. Of course, it's gone on far longer than that, but like this shit doesn't change. It's all the same. It's all been going on forever. Fucking ridiculous. I could go on this long. I wanted to bring you another update on just how many Israel is arresting because, you know, as I've mentioned many times, we hear all about the hostages being held by Hamas, being held in Gaza, and our media essentially does not mention that Israel has tens of thousands of hostages. They're holding tens of thousands of people. Now, I often say the number is 10,000 because I knew it was 5,000 prior to October 7th, and then they arrested 5,000 more, so I was guessing it was around 10,000. But here is a new update. Israel has carried out 15,700 political arrests of Palestinians in the West Bank since the Gaza genocide began. That's just in the West Bank. 15,700 arrests. Now, that doesn't mean they hold them all forever. Some of them they just harass, beat, terrorize, sometimes torture, and release. But there's been 15,000 arrests over the past year in just the West Bank. And who knows how many of those they still have. But yeah, anytime anyone mentions hostages, you should immediately respond, what about the tens of thousands of hostages that Israel has? How about that? Should we mention that? Okay, I'm actually going to move away from the topic of Israel for a moment. Might get back there. We always seem to get back there. But, by the way, everyone, click thumbs up, click share, click all that good stuff. And this, by the way, is my new time for Wednesdays, if you were unaware. I do live streams Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, and I do them Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but Wednesdays is at 8 p.m. and Mondays and Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. So I don't know if you heard that 23andMe has just filed for bankruptcy. The DNA ancestry site. And here is an article from this New York Times separate publication called Wirecutter. I don't know what the hell that means, but anyway, 23andMe has just filed for bankruptcy, and the title says you should delete your data now. So if you have family members, I feel like it's most of our parents who have done the dumb thing of sending their DNA to 23andMe in order to find out some interesting things, but meanwhile, 23andMe has stolen their DNA information. 23andMe, maker of popular DNA test kits, announced Sunday that it is filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, is looking for a buyer. Although the company has promised to continue protecting consumer data amidst a possible sale, California's Attorney General has advised 23andMe users to consider deleting their information. The company's decision to declare bankruptcy was not a surprising one after their 2023 data breach. I don't know if you remember that, but a couple of years ago, they attackers gained access to the information of 7 million customers, and 23andMe's stock price plummeted. Like 7 million people's DNA was revealed to hackers. It's just... Anyway, they're saying you should delete your information before it is sold. However, I don't like when you delete your information off any of these apps. Like if you go to to Facebook and you delete your Facebook profile, do you really think Facebook deletes it? Or do you think they just say, okay, deleted. It's been deleted. So I don't know how much it would do to delete your data at 23andMe at this point, but who knows? Maybe they're different than Facebook. Users of the 23andMe test send the company samples of their saliva to learn about their ancestry and possible health risks. The CEO and founder said that 85, I can't pronounce her name, Wachiki, said that 85% of the company's customers also consent to their data being used to research diseases. Unlike with other forms of medical data, few guardrails protect genetic data stored by companies like 23andMe. According to the guide to home DNA kits, the vast majority of these companies are not subject to the HIPAA laws governing the privacy of your health and medical records. So yeah, you send your DNA to this company and they do whatever the fuck they want with it. Basically, that's that's the end result. But I don't know if you guys remember this, that there's basically two DNA companies, right? 23andMe and Ancestry.com. Do you remember what happened to Ancestry.com a few years ago? It was bought by Blackstone. Blackstone is the absolutely disgusting, ruthless venture capital fund that is the largest landlord in America. They buy up all of the houses and apartments and things across America, jack up prices, and then make a lot of money. So they're absolutely, Blackheart should be their name, really. And if you're thinking that sounds like BlackRock, well, they were spun out of BlackRock. They started, the guy who heads Blackstone started at BlackRock and then I think founded Blackstone. Anyway, Blackstone, this ruthless venture capital fund, bought Ancestry.com back in, when was this? 2020, for $4.7 billion. Ancestry is the global leader in digital family history services, operating in more than 30 countries. The company has over 3.6 million subscribers with annual revenue of $1 billion. So why would you pay $4.7 billion for a company that has an income of only $1 billion a year? And these DNA companies, they tend to do well at first and then go down because the number of people that are willing to send their saliva to these companies, eventually that gets tapped out. Like, it's unlikely that you just grow forever. Eventually, everyone's found out that they have some ancestor in Russia. And then what do you do? So these companies have kind of a shelf life in that regard, but that's not where the real money is. The real money is in this data from the DNA that allows for all kinds of things. Maybe they're cloning you out there right now. Oh, that's funny. Right as I said cloning, Child of God in the comments said cloning. Maybe they're cloning all of us. Maybe there's an army of us, except right now they're babies over at the Blackstone factory. It's just, they've got an army of every American 5 years old. I guess they're not babies anymore. Now they're 5 years old, and they're just waiting. They're like 15 more years and we're going to unleash an exactly similar population out onto the United States, except by then, I'll be in my 60s or 70s or 60s, I guess. And the 20-year-olds will be able to easily outcompete you. That'd be a great movie, honestly. Hey, isn't it exciting when you find a dystopia that hasn't already, occurred? That hasn't occurred yet. They haven't released a younger version of all of us out to kill us all. But I think that's where we're headed. Anyway, I find this like I told you so, but I know I'm not the only one. When 23andMe and Ancestry.com started getting big, everyone, not everyone, but there were plenty of people like, wait, you send your DNA to them? Are you not worried about that? Is that not a problem? And there were plenty of us saying that. And sure enough, both companies have now been sold to the highest bidder. And we know what they're going to do with it. Okay, I wanted to get this out there. Friend of the show, who's been on this show, been on Redacted Tonight, been on all my shows many times. Green Party candidate Jill Stein, they have charged her for protesting the genocide in Israel. Prosecutors in St. Louis have formally charged former Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein and one other demonstrator for their actions during a pro-Palestine protest at Washington University last spring. Stein was charged Friday with first-degree trespass and fourth-degree assault. Yeah, right. She has been accused, by the way, if you're wondering, she's 5'2" and weighs about 40 pounds. She's been accused of kicking a police officer and hitting him with a bicycle. That sounds a lot like her. Oh my God, Jill, have you ever seen her? She's just swinging bicycles around her over her head all the time. During a protest last April that resulted in the arrest of more than 100 people. According to court documents, WashU police ordered the demonstrators to disperse, but they refused. When officers moved in to make arrests, Stein linked arms with other protesters. An officer was injured tussling with her. But the other thing that's incredible about this story is that it's barely a story. Like, who's even covering that a presidential candidate, while she was running for president, was arrested for protesting, but now they're charging her. They want her to spend time in prison for trying to stop a genocide while she was running for president. That's how sick our society has become. And this story should be, like, at minimum, it should be a blip on the radar of, like, mainstream media. Hey, presidential candidate charged by the Trump administration. That, I feel like that should be covered. But no, of course not, because she's outside of the two-party system. So therefore, she's garbage. Anybody outside of the two-party system is absolutely garbage. Juan Carlos in the chat says, Tom Cotton will probably say Jill Stein's funded by communist China. Yeah. Probably will. Okay, folks, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you for joining me for this hour. Tomorrow night, Unredacted Tonight. It's free to watch, Unredacted Tonight. And it airs at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. But as I said last week, you should really try and catch the premiere. I get that you can watch it anytime. If you don't catch it at 7 p.m. Eastern, you can watch whenever. But catching the premiere, there's something special about that. You know, it's like really good food, but if you get it like fresh out of the oven, as opposed to like an hour later, it's like, yeah, it's still good an hour later, but that fresh out of the oven is, man, that's something. So you should check out the premiere, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And the quickest way to get there now, you can go to my Linktree, linktree.com/LeeCamp, but linktree.com/unredacted, lowercase, is the full playlist of all the unredacted episodes, if you haven't caught any. And what's the other thing I was going to tell you? I now have a Substack. So that's at substack.com/@realleecamp. And I would love for you to support this show. Honestly, it makes a difference, and it makes it possible for me to keep Unredacted Tonight going. Unredacted Tonight I'll be honest with you, it's got a limited amount of time that it can run losing this much money. So we'll see what happens. It'll go for a while either way, but I'd love to make it financially sustainable, and then I can keep it going. So a lot of that's going to come down to whether you guys are willing to pay $6 a month, which is a little over $1 for each Unredacted Tonight episode. It's 38 cents for every episode, 38 cents an episode if you count all my live streams. And I'd love for you to join up. LeeCamp.net is one place you can do it. The other is patreon.com/LeeCamp. LeeCamp.net is my locals page. It's really fun over there. It's kind of like a mix of Patreon and Facebook. You can post your own stuff. That's different than Patreon. You can post your own things on the locals page. So that's LeeCamp.net. Will take you straight to my locals page. And you can join up, and you get my my ebook, Dangerous Ideas, when you join up, and so many other things. Dinner with Franklin says, best 38 cents I've ever spent. Thank you. Love it. Appreciate it, brother. Thank you, Juan Carlos, for the kind words. Really appreciate that. And keep fighting out there. Yes, Sensei also says best money I've spent. Thank you, Firepower, for your support. All right. I will see you tomorrow for Unredacted Tonight. Keep fighting.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha ha.